Have you ever felt an inexplicable irritation when observing someone's behavior? Perhaps that person who talks too loudly, seems to always want to draw attention, or that coworker who procrastinates while you are working your hardest. You feel an immediate discomfort, as if something inside you wants to push that presence away, reject that attitude. But why does this happen? What is it about these traits that provoke such aversion? What makes certain characteristics so unbearable for you that you lose patience, scoff, or even feel disgust? The truth is that often what bothers us most in others says more about us than we would like to admit. Imagine that your mind is a mirror. It reflects both the qualities you value and those you reject. However, there are parts of this mirror that remain hidden, fragments you prefer not to see. When someone exhibits one of those repressed characteristics, that hidden reflection becomes visible, even if you are not consciously aware of it. Perhaps you get irritated with someone who boasts all the time. But does that irritation not reveal a repressed desire of yours to be more recognized? Maybe you detest authoritarian people, but deep down, you wish you had more control over your own life. Or perhaps you disdain someone who avoids conflict, but only because you yourself would like to not have to deal with so many responsibilities. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." If this is true, then our anger and disdain for others can be valuable signs for self-knowledge. This concept may seem uncomfortable, but it can completely change the way we see others and ourselves. If what irritates us about others has something to teach us about our own shadows, then every moment of discomfort can be an opportunity for growth. But recognizing this requires courage. It means abandoning the comfortable position of victim and taking responsibility for what we feel. And let's be honest, few people are willing to do this. It is much easier to point out others' flaws than to face our own imperfections. You can continue to believe that others are the problem, that it is always them who irritate you, that they are the ones who should change. Or you can accept that this irritation has something to say to you, and start to ask yourself, what does this say about me? Have you ever stopped to think that your identity is not just what you present to the world? On the surface, you have built a personality based on values, beliefs, and experiences. But that is only part of your story. There is another side, the one you hide, deny, or do not even perceive. Carl Jung called this hidden part the shadow. The shadow is made up of everything we repress in ourselves. These are desires, impulses, personality traits, and even talents that, for some reason, we have learned to reject. From an early age, we hear that certain behaviors are unacceptable. Don't be selfish. Don't shout. Don't show weakness. To be accepted, we shape our personality according to the expectations of the environment. But everything we repress does not disappear, it simply remains hidden in the unconscious. And what happens when these repressed characteristics do not find a safe space to be recognized? They return to consciousness in a distorted way, in the form of irritation and disdain for others. Jung explains, projection transforms the world into a reflection of one's own unknown. When something bothers us in someone, it is often because, at some level, there is an aspect of it within us. It may be a characteristic we possess but deny, or a desire we repress for fear of being judged. Consider a practical example. Someone who feels bothered by arrogant people may be projecting their own desire to assert themselves and be valued. Someone who judges laziness in others may be denying their own need for rest. If something evokes a strong emotional reaction in you, it is worth asking, does this say more about me than about the other? Denying the shadow does not make it disappear. On the contrary, it strengthens it. The more we try to hide certain parts of ourselves, the more those parts seek a way to manifest. This can happen through unexpected emotional outbursts, existential crises, or even repetitive patterns that seem to haunt us. Nietzsche addressed this idea when he said, "He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you." In other words, the more we deny our own shadows, the more they dominate our perception and behavior. The shadow does not need to be your enemy. On the contrary, by recognizing it, you can use it as a pathway to self-knowledge. But for that, courage is required. Now that you understand the idea of the shadow and projection, you may be wondering, but how does this manifest in my life? The answer lies in the small daily annoyances. Think of someone who deeply irritates you. It could be that coworker who is constantly late, the friend who seems to take nothing seriously, or even a family member who always plays the victim. You feel a wave of frustration when dealing with these people, but you rarely question the true reason for this discomfort. If someone who arrives late sparks your anger, it may be that, deep down, you have repressed your own desire to relax and not be so hard on yourself. If you despise people who are always seeking attention, perhaps there is within you a repressed desire to be seen and recognized. If you get irritated with those who are insecure, it might be because you are afraid to admit your own vulnerability. This process of psychological projection is natural, but it can prevent us from seeing the truth about ourselves. Instead of just judging others, we can use these reactions as a compass for our personal growth. Imagine a person who is extremely organized and feels intense disdain for those who are careless. They may see the other person as irresponsible and lazy. But doesn't this discomfort reveal a deep fear within them? Perhaps, deep down, they are afraid of losing control, of relaxing a little, and allowing themselves to live without so many rules. Another example, someone who hates arrogant people may be projecting their own repressed desire to assert themselves and be recognized. Besides emotional reactions, projections also appear in unconscious judgments. You might think someone is fake or manipulative when, in reality, that person is simply expressing something you fear to admit in yourself. If we pay attention, we will see that some people seem to irritate us more than others. The reason for this may lie less in their behavior and more in how we interpret their actions. The discomfort functions as a mirror, reflecting parts of ourselves that we have not yet accepted. If something causes you an intense emotional reaction, ask yourself, what does this reveal about me? Accepting this reality is uncomfortable, but liberating. After all, if what we see in others is, in some way, a reflection of ourselves, we have the opportunity to transform our way of seeing the world, and ourselves. Now that you understand projection and its influence on how we perceive others, an essential question arises: what to do with this information? The first reaction of many people when confronted with their shadow is denial. "I'm not like that," we automatically think. But if a trait truly didn't exist within us, why would it evoke such emotion? The truth is that the more we deny an aspect of ourselves, the more power it has over us. Carl Jung teaches us that true growth occurs through the process of individuation, becoming a whole person by integrating all aspects of one's personality, including those we prefer to ignore. This means recognizing that we are not just what we choose to show the world, but also everything we repress. But how can we do this in practice? Recontextualize your reactions whenever something or someone bothers you. Use it as an invitation to reflect. Ask yourself, why does this bother me so much? Is there something within me that connects with this? What can I learn about myself from this reaction? Instead of just reacting impulsively, observe your feelings with curiosity, without judging them. Often, what we criticize in others is, in fact, a reflection of something we have yet to learn to deal with within ourselves. Practice self-compassion. Looking at your own shadow can be uncomfortable. Accepting that you also have negative impulses, fears, and contradictions can be painful. But remember, no one is perfect. Self-knowledge is not a path to rid yourself of your flaws, but to understand them and use them to your advantage. Instead of criticizing yourself, practice self-compassion. We all have parts we prefer to hide, and that doesn't make us any less valuable. Recognizing your shadow does not mean you should surrender to it, but rather that you can understand it and transform it into something useful. Transform projection into self-improvement. When you realize you are projecting something onto others, ask yourself, how can I work on this within myself? If you feel anger towards people who seek validation, perhaps you need to learn to recognize your own worth without depending on others. If you disdain those who lack discipline, it may be that, deep down, you are being too hard on yourself. Additionally, try to observe patterns. Is there a certain type of person that always irritates you? A behavior that constantly bothers you? These repetitions may indicate something your shadow is trying to show you. Change occurs when we stop seeing the other as the problem and start to see the hidden lessons in each discomfort. You have gone through a challenging process up to this point. Seeing yourself beyond the masks you have created, recognizing your shadow, and realizing how you project onto others what you deny in yourself is not easy. But it is precisely this path that leads to self-knowledge and true transformation. Personal growth is not a final destination but a continuous journey. You will never be completely ready, as there will always be new layers of yourself to explore. And this is not a weakness, it is the beauty of human existence. Carl Jung reminds us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Therefore, the question remains, will you continue to react automatically to the people and situations that bother you, or will you use these moments as mirrors for your own evolution? The answer is in your hands.